Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So it's Cypher Sigma Screen Time here. It is the weekend, and yes, we are here to review even the Thunderbolts movie. So the Thunderbolts asterisk, or if, as it's kind of been leaked online, the new Avengers. So I am a massive comic fan. I'd been a comic fan since the very early 2000s. So this initially was a dream come true for me. The fact we would get some sort of adaptation on the screen. Whether it turned out for that, you'll have to wait to see the review at the end. So anybody who doesn't know, this is the 36th Marvel movie in the MCU community world. The movie is 2 hours and 6 minutes long. There were two end credit scenes. There's one at the beginning and there's one at the very end. It has a very tailored cast. So you have Florence Pugh as Yelena, essentially Black Widow's younger sister. Sebastian Stan as Bucky Barnes. Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina, Lewis Pullman as Bob, David Harbour as Red Guardian, White Russell as John Walker, Hannah Johnson Kamen as Ava Starr or Ghost, and Ola Kulak, if I've got it, as Taskmaster, probably the shortest role we'll ever see. And I had Gwendoline Bissonette, if I've got her as male, and I'll reason why I'll mention that. This is directed by Jake Schrager, if I pronounce it right. Done Paper Towns and some like the Beef TV series and a few other little bits. I think one episode of Skeleton Crew. So the premise of this is essentially you have a random bunch of bad guys that all work with Valentina. Due to her being subpoenaed by the courts, she goes into a process of getting rid of all the evidence. This involves a person who was experimented on Bob, and then obviously a load of them managed to escape, and then it's kind of them trying to get back at Valentina and then kind of coming together and having this realization. I say it's the latest Marvel movie. It seems to be doing quite well. I think it's almost made its budget back already within the first weekend, so that is good for Marvel movies. Obviously, I will go for this. I go in with two views. I go in with my own view. I try and go as a neutral view, so I'll kind of rate it first as what I think of the film, and then I will kind of rate it as a massive Thunderbolt comic fan of what I felt. So there will be two kind of rankings at the end of this. But it is what it is. So we'll get the spoiler warning up and we shall get into it. So yes, so the movie starts. We have Valentina being, rewind, you have Florence Pugh. She is basically gone to this lab. You hear about this Century program and she is kind of having a midlife crisis. She doesn't know, she's doing this road program. She does this bombing, and she does the stunt of jumping off the tower, which I don't think they played as much emphasis. You see a jumper off and then a parachute open, but I don't know how much was involved here. I don't think they've done like Mission Impossible, the stunts. But yeah, she blows up the building, does her job, and basically says, this is it for me. I want one more job with Valentina, and then this is it. So Valentina, in between of these court processes, is essentially, as you see, the courts, and obviously Sebastian Stan is here, and obviously paying attention. Valentina talks to her sidekick, Mel, and I say there is a reference to the Thunderbolts comics, and I'll tell you that about later. So Mel is kind of tasked with getting rid of all the assets and evidence, that because basically she's going to be subpoenaed and stuff like this, and they're going to find out. So they set all of the agents that she has working for her. So this is US Agent, this is Taskmaster, this is Ghost, and Yelena. They're all basically sent to the same complex, which is essentially a incinerator, to kill each other. The doors all shut. They're all fighting each other. This resolves in Taskmaster getting killed off within the first 5 minutes. One line, one face. She gets right. We will go into that later. The other three are left there, and then Bob magically turns up when you realise he comes out of a pod. And then between the four of them, they manage to escape the building. As they escape the building, when certain people interact with Bob or touch Bob, he kind of manages to take him to this really dark kind of memory or something that they have in, kind of takes him out of it. What essentially happens is more or less they're just about to get out. They get confronted. Bob sacrifices himself, gets shot down by a lot of people, and after that he then glows eyes. This magical power comes out of him. He shoots off into the air, explodes, and then crashes down to the ground. This is a good distraction for Ghosts, US Agent, and Yelena to basically escape. They head off into the desert. Valentina takes Bob, and then takes him back to their new watchtower, which is essentially the Avengers Tower from the original Avengers movies. This is where then the film kind of dissects, and you have Valentina kind of coercing Bob and trying to bring him on to her way of thinking. You can see he's kind of got a bit of a split personality, or he has issues or something. Anyway, Mel is having second thoughts. She is loosely based off a comic book character called Songbird, and she does have a little songbird pendant to kind of mimic that. But she's kind of the assistant, but she kind of helps Bucky to kind of lead him onto it. Because she's led Bucky onto what has happened with Sentry and stuff, or Bob. As he's freer in the desert, Red Guardian turns up because he is doing a limo driving part-time, and he drives Valentina from the here into another place, and he overhears it. So he goes into the middle of the desert and finds them all, and this is where the four of them are then together and trying to escape in the desert. They're then chased by Valentina's men to try and just get rid of any evidence of her doing any wrongdoings. And in between this, then Bucky turns up because he's been tipped off by Mel. He captures all of them, and then this is when there is the kind of realization that Bucky kind of incorporates these people into his team, or they all come together. Then there is a kind of running joke list between Yelena's like young high school football team, or young kiddie football team that were called the Thunderbolts, and they keep being called the Thunderbolts in between. Essentially what they then do is they then go to New York. They blast away into the building to be confronted by Bob, or in his now Sentry persona. He wipes the floor with all of them. They basically all kind of have a cause of faith and all decide to start going their own way. Like they can't beat Sentry. Bob's too much. Because Bob is all powerful, he kind of starts kind of becoming self-aware that he is more powerful than what Valentina can control him. She tries to kill the kill switch. She doesn't get. He chokes her out. As he's choking her out, Mel manages to come in and basically kills the Sentry, Bob. He falls down on the floor. Then they try and go for like quality control. In between this, Bob turns black. He turns into this creature called the Void, essentially, then starts wiping out everybody in New York. Yelena basically takes it on herself to go into this void, and then the other Thunderbolts follow and all kind of come back together to be this team to defeat the Void and bring Bob back to kind of normality and save of New York. Because of obviously during all this fiasco they have been saving New York, people have been clapping. Valentina sets up this kind of diversion for him as they come after her and come through some sheets. There's a press conference and she basically says, oh yeah, this is my team, the new Avengers, and that's what they are called. The end. The end before the 2-minute credits. So first off, you kind of have a very first funny credit scene, for the life of me, which I can't remember what it was. It probably will come back to me. And then the end one is 14 months later. You have them in the watchtower. Yelena, Ghost, Bucky, and US Agent are all talking because they've all come from a mission. Red Guardian's kind of sitting there with merchandise, and Bob is just reading a book in there. And they basically say there's issues up in space, and then you see a ship come through, and it's the Fantastic Four, basically predating the next series, the next movie in this MCU, which is the Fantastic Four First Steps. And that is essentially it. So what did I think of this movie? So first off, this as a movie, I'm going this route. I'm not going as the fan route. It was all right. There was a lot more focus on Yelena and a lot more focus on Bob, and I think that took away from some of the team. there have been many rewrites, which you kind of notice as Taskmaster was in some credits and then she gets killed off, and then they say there's a reasons why this. The end credit scenes was there were several ideas of what this was going to be. So as we go into like the conclusion of this, yeah, there is a lot of focus on Yelena and there's a lot of focus on Bob. These two, I think, take more center stage, and there's people like Bucky and that take it back. Red Guardian, he doesn't do a lot for me. He's there for some kind of comical value, and for me, it didn't really hit a lot of places. I love David Harbour. I think he's a really good actor. Obviously, I love him in Stranger Things and stuff like this. For this, he's more the kind of complaining, trying to make funny, not really doing like. He does save the girl, and it is quite harsh when he saves the girl, and then the girl you think has completely disappeared. But I just felt he could have done more, and it could have been focused on some of the other characters. Obviously, when they were all fighting each other at the very beginning was really, I thought, was done really, really well. I wanted a bit more of that, and obviously Yelena walking down the corridor, there's a few bits like that. Whether that's down to the Century, the Void, the Bob character kind of taking a lot of space because he's kind of three personalities and he kind of is a bad guy. It is what it is. As I say, it could be my anticipation for this movie. The first third of it, I maybe was on tenterhooks, expecting a lot more, expecting a lot less. I don't know. So this could impact this story. Obviously, they've led them to a place. They've built them together as a team. And I say, the John Walker character, very much a redeeming arc for him. And, you know, I think, like most people, I really enjoy this guy. I really like quite a lot of the characters, probably Red Guardian being the only one not. Bob, he was all right. I found some of the cucumber bits amusing. Was a big fan of Valentina. As I say, it all by the end of it kind of felt like they were like, we have all these characters spread out. These characters are kind of rebels, kind of bad guys. We could tie them under what essentially is the Thunderbolt banner, and the Thunderbolt banner is essentially like Suicide Squad. It's bad guys that are trying to be good guys. That it's evolved into. It didn't start off that way. This is what it is. You have like you go in and focus it. It then kind of as these teams gone along with the rewrites, it kind of feels like, right, well, we've got Doomsday. Pardon me. That's where we're heading, and we need to bring them into the Avengers. So this is when they're kind of, oh, we'll go with this idea, we'll rebrand them as the Avengers. But you have this new team, and I say by the end of it, you essentially have Bucky that can do something, US agent that can do something, even though he's got a damaged shield, Ghost, and Yelena. Red Guardian looks like he's basically the butler, and Bob, he's got a bit of split personality, so he doesn't do anything. So you only technically have a team of 4 people, which I don't think is that great. Even, you know, you would need, I think, if it was better rounded out, maybe that is. And I say, and this seems to be with the open, obviously it opens up, and I think AJ has mentioned this, obviously Fantastic Four is obviously a different multiverse. They're coming into ours, and that's how it brings them all together. Doom probably comes from that universe. I think we know that now, definitely. And how these characters are going, because obviously you've lost 14 months from when the end of the movie happens to this, and then obviously in Fantastic Four or another movie, you will kind of feature these characters, maybe in the Doomsday Avengers. And I assume that's kind of going to be close to when those Avenger movies to cap out all these characters. So it seems very short-lived, and I don't know, it doesn't bond that well. I mean, I did enjoy the movie. I did enjoy aspects of the movie. And as a movie in its own, I rate it 5.5 out of 10. As I say, now this is where I'm going to switch focus. So as a Thunderbolts fan, so I am, as you can't really tell, but since the early 2000s, I've been a massive fan of this comic book series. Now, when you read behind the scenes, so there is a lot that was redone for this movie. Now, Taskmaster wasn't supposed to be killed. Taskmaster and Ghost were actually supposed to be like kind of a sister act and supposed to have a common theme going throughout it. And Taskmaster, because of her mind, she kept wanting to refight John Walker, which I thought was actually would have been a really good storyline for those characters. It would bring Taskmaster and Ghost a bit more forward. You would have the funny kind of interactions with John Walker. And then there's kind of hints that because Taskmaster was shown in the Sentry scene, that Sentry would kill her, and they wanted to make her death more poignant. In this, I don't think you really needed to kill her off. I think it shows with the fact her name is on the credits. She is billed as one of the main people. I don't think she even has 5 minutes of screen time. She has one line, and she has billing with everyone else, who's essentially in most of the movie, which makes me think of this movie has been changed a lot. The Asterix have been there the best part of a year. I think this new Avengers thing is a gimmick that they have with this characters. You know, as a Thunderbolt fan, the whole point of the original fan was Zemo. He disguised a lot of people as bad guys, as good guys, to kind of look like they would do good, and then there would be an underhandness. Now, there were talks to have Zemo as an after credit scene. I think that should have been kept in. I really think I would probably want to take Sentry out, have some sort of bad guy, have it that essentially, even if it's Valentina has like a hitman or somebody like this, or even some sort of experiment, but it doesn't have to be Sentry. That these villains essentially all get brought together exactly the same as they go into this complex. They all help each other to escape. During this, they then want to get back at Valentina, which is essentially kind of what happens. It then builds to a final fight between them and Valentina and some sort of bad guy. They all kind of try to defeat the bad guy. They manage to, but in the process, part of New York gets destroyed. This is when they then go out into the streets and they're saving people left, right, and center. This is where then everyone's clapping and like, oh, you're brilliant. And obviously with the running joke in the Thunderbolts, I think we're the Thunderbolts. Then you have the Valentina tie up a walk through and go, these are my new Avengers. And they all go, nah, we're the Thunderbolts. And then I think that's where kind of the film should end. Them preempting that the Fantastic Four should come in, I feel like is too much. You know, as a massive fan of these comic books, essentially you started the 2-hour movie with them being the Thunderbolts. By the end, they're not the Thunderbolts, they're the Avengers, and then you've lost 14 months. So you've got there, and then you've lost 14 months. And basically, these characters will go into probably Endgame, will go into the Doomsday one, and I say that's their story arc. So essentially, the Thunderbolts have kind of feel like they've been shitted on, in my eyes, as a Thunderbolt fan. You know, it took in the core concept of bad guys becoming good guys. Yes, they did do that in the comics. In the later one, Bucky does take over as a leader, which they did have in that, but he's not the leader. He kind of brings them together. But as I say, there were elements that didn't work together, and there were only like a team of really 4 people, as it is kind of showcased. And I feel a very misjustice for this, that by, you know, the fact of even the rebranding and there's stuff that was changed, I felt this could have been a far better movie. I think, you know, giving the fans like Zemo even being an after credit scene, I think would be giving the fans exactly what they wanted to. It would be like that Daredevil popping up in the final Spider-Man movie, or like them bringing some, it would what the fans of these comics want. And I know it's not a massive one, but it's almost like going, well, we have, you know, Thunderbolts is a potential for something bigger, like Guardians of the Galaxy was, but it's like doing Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and by the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy, they go, no, we're the Avengers, and off they go, and then that's it. And being like, well, hang on a second, there were 2 more movies that are actually really, 2's all right, but 3 was really, really good. And this is, I think there's so much wasted potential in this, and with the rewrites and stuff, they've obviously changed it for certain reasons, and I think that harms the Thunderbolt brand. Personally, I know it's not the greatest comics, but nor would the Guardians of the Galaxies. I think given more time and effort on these characters, but I think, as I say, people higher up in Marvel have been converted. So, as a Thunderbolts fan, I rate this movie 4.5 out of 10. I come out the movie because of the rebrand. The rebranding bit is at the end. It's almost like they did them dirty. As I say, it's literally like someone has gone, we want Thunderbolts. I think Thunderbolts was supposed to be quite an early movie, so it's been in like development hell, so to speak, for quite a long time. And then when finally they're getting a movie, and literally they don't even have 2 hours of screen time as Thunderbolts, it's under 2 hours before, you know, it's even like an hour or something, because they kind of come up with the name to, or an hour and a half from when they called the name to when they leave, and then they're the new Avengers. And it just, any fan of the Thunderbolts, I don't think would be happy with this. I like the fact that they've subtly brought Songbird into it, even though she's a human and she doesn't have powers. But I think this is where you could bring more elements into this, and it had so much more potential. And I obviously think with the Century and the rewrites and stuff like this, I say, I'm disappointed, but I will be rewatching this movie. My father-in-law does want to go see this movie, so I will watch this the second one. I will watch this with hopefully a different opinion, and I'm very much on the fence, as I say, 4.5 one, 5.8 on the other. I sit very much like in the middle of whether I like it or not. I'm a Thunderbolts fan. I probably will buy this when it comes out. Hopefully there'll be a lot of behind the scenes and the reshoots and stuff. They might mention that, so I can actually see what's involved. But have you seen the Thunderbolts movie / the New Avengers? What are your thoughts and feelings? Let me know in the comments down below. I've been Cypher Sigma's Screen Time. I shall see you in the next one.